So yeah, that was the grand plan for this video. The worst thing I know is when I have to take the hammer to my bike, and moving to that Token Ninja bottom bracket was one step in the right direction. Now with this relatively affordable universal bottom bracket toolkit, I thought I could retire my hammer for good while installing some new NTN bearings in my old Token Ninja bottom bracket. I will talk a bit more on why I went with these NTN bearings at the end of the video, but the main topic here is this universal toolkit. Unfortunately, I ran into some issues that made this universal toolkit not as universal as I was hoping, ironically because of that Token thread fit bottom bracket. But rather than scrap this whole video because of some issues, I still think it's worth a share, as it will still make dealing with Pressfit bottom brackets and bearings a lot easier for us amateur home mechanics, frame imperfections aside. So this kit comes with tools for both removal and installation. My kit here is actually missing one part that is included in the kit I originally ordered, and that's the part that hooked behind the cup when removing the cups themselves without pushing on the bearings. Does that make sense? However, that part is not necessary in my case since I have that thread fit Ninja bottom bracket. So when that original order got stuck in China, I just decided to go with this slightly simpler kit instead. The link down in the description will be for the full kit though, and it's only around $55, and I think that's a pretty good deal for us amateur home mechanics that insist on doing everything ourselves. In the end, I did overcome those issues, but rather than me explain that in words, let's just take a look at that whole process. Okay, so let's get into this. After I got the crank off and the bearing covers, I needed to remove the old bearings. In the case of my THM crank, there's a 30mm spindle or 6806 bearings, so I will use the extractor together with the bigger split collet here. I think that's what they call it, after my brief googling on the matter. The smaller collet is for removing the bottom brackets that takes 24mm spindles. So the split collet goes in behind the bearing and the extractor on the opposite side, expanding the collet to firmly fit behind the bearing. Then I just threaded the bolt from the opposite side as well into the extractor cup. And as you can see, I have the extra collar here that will brace against the cup itself. Without this, the collar would brace against the BB shell itself, and that's how you remove the actual BB cups if you have a proper PF30 bottom bracket. But in this case, I just wanted to remove the bearings, and since this is a thread together bottom bracket, it would not really work anyway. So with that in place, I can turn the bolt with my 8mm hex key and gently push out the bearing into the extractor cup. So civilized, no caveman-like hammering. This is exactly what was missing in my life. But when moving on to the dry side bearing, I ran into my first issue of the day. As you can see here, since the Token Ninja is a thread together bottom bracket, the inner cup sleeve from the dry side is very thick. I guess this is good for stiffness, but it's very bad if you want to remove the bearing from the cup, as you can only see a few millimeters of the inner bearing race. So not only is it very little material to push against, I can't even fit the collet inside this sleeve. But let's be honest, I'm pretty sure Token don't even want you to swap the bearings in the first place. They'd rather have me buy a complete new bottom bracket. But I'm not going to let them win. However, this destroyed my plan for this video, as I'm forced to use my Cayman cup removal tool and a hammer. I briefly considered cutting my tool here so I can use it with the bolt extractor cup, but I decided to keep it intact just for future endeavors. You never know what you will run into, but I guess that would be an option. Now, while I had to use the hammer in the end here, it's important to point out that a true Pressfit bottom bracket would not have this issue, and normally you should be able to just press the bearings out of the cups on both sides. So with both the bearings out of the BB, I can confirm that they still felt probably nice and smooth, and if it wasn't for my curiosity, I would not have needed to swap these bearings yet. I think it's about a year now on this bottom bracket, and there have been 0 issues and 0 noises. So yeah, I'm just curious to try new stuff. So these are the TBT bearings, which are ceramic balls on extra hardened steel races, as they put it in their marketing. I will leave the whole ceramic versus steel debate to people who actually know what they're talking about. But from this video, I think you can figure out which side I'm on. However, weight is a fact that's undebatable, and as you can see here, the token or the Takino bearings comes in 7 grams lighter for the set than the NTN steel bearings. I suspect Token uses a plastic carrier for the balls. The NTN ones are much more durable metal construction. All in all though, I don't have any regrets adding those 7 grams. So all that was left to do was to press the new bearings in. Pretty straightforward with this kit. Use the 30mm drifts and press the bearings in. Or that was what I thought. This is where I ran into my second issue. The drifts have an outer lip here or an edge that's meant to press against the cup itself when pressing in Pressfit cups. This lip unfortunately gets in the way when trying to press in a bearing in this Token BB. As I press this flush against the cup, the bearing still has about 1 or 2 millimeters left until it's fully seated. Here you can see the problem, hopefully. The largest parts of the drift is larger than the bearing itself, so I needed a drift that was slightly smaller than the outer race of the bearing. Luckily, the BBT30 tool I have from Park Tool comes with drifts that are made for pressing in these kinds of bearings, and they saved me in this case. I guess you could try to find a washer of the right size, or if you really wanted to gamble, you could have flipped the bearing covers and used that as washers. Not a hack I would really recommend though. So with these Park Tool drifts, I could press in the bearings that last millimeter. Press the other bearing in the same way, no issues there. A bit of cleaning, and then I could put the crank back on. Done and dusted, and as meaningless as an unloaded spin test is, I don't really have any complaints here. So all went well in the end. I did have to use that hammer once, as you saw, and I had to take the help of another set of drifts to get those bearings all the way into place. But those issues should not be a problem on a true Pressfit bottom bracket. Hopefully. That's my logic at least. I'm sure someone will correct me in the comments, but I think most bottom brackets out there are not really designed to accommodate a quick bearing swap. But I think as long as you have a bottom bracket with metal cups, these toolkits will make that process pretty damn simple. And that's why I think this kit is a pretty good deal for us amateurs. And just to address why I went with these NTN steel bearings, it actually started when Hambini himself commented on my original Token video, mentioning that I should be able to just swap the bearings once the original ones were shot. And since watching his videos on endless bottom bracket issues, or should I say frame tolerance issues, learning about that ordeal, his high praise of the NTN bearings, and then realizing how cheap I can get proper genuine NTN bearings here in Japan, since they're a Japanese company, around $10 per bearing that can pretty much outperform any of the bike branded high-end bearings that cost like 10 times as much. I just had to try it. I will probably get a proper Hambini bottom bracket in the future, but since this one is working so good still, it will probably have to wait until my next frame, whenever that might be. Now, unfortunately, NTN bearings are a bit more expensive if you live outside Japan. And there are also a lot of fakes floating around from my understanding. So I will be very careful sourcing these bearings and try to get them from authorized dealers and kind of leave that eBay and third-party Amazon sellers out of the picture. So I will check the official homepage, or the simplest way will probably be to just order them directly from Hambini's website, as I'm pretty sure we can trust he only stocks genuine bearings. NTN does have 3 main ways to check that the bearings are genuine. Unfortunately, it's all in the packaging. One is the QR code that you can scan with their app. The other one is that holographic little seal. The third one is those pattern you can see on that label. If you look really close, they should actually say NTN in a wavy form there. Unfortunately, all these 3 methods you can fake. I mean, I can stamp that QR code on a banana and then I would have a genuine NTN bearing banana. So just be aware of that. I would not take any risks and just order them from Hambini. That would probably be the simplest way in the end. Now, I've ridden these maybe around 300k, mostly inside, and everything is smooth sailing now. But I will be sure to include a long-term impressions or report if something happens in my yearly recap video. So stay tuned for that. I hope you found this somewhat useful information. If you did, feel free to leave a like and subscribe if you want more nerdy stuff. Hopefully this rainy season is over soon so I can ride outside again. If you do decide to subscribe, I will catch you in the next one. Peace.